You're watching Shalom TV, celebrating Jewish culture.
I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about our experience in Toronto, and in a very short time try to give you a little bit of a background of a picture of Toronto, some of our challenges. I want to highlight the factors that led to Israel engagement initiatives in our community, outline the goals of our Israel engagement committee, and describe our experience with both of the organizations from whom you've just heard, with whom we partner in programs in Toronto through Federation. First of all, Toronto is a community of approximately 200,000 Jews. We represent over 50% of Canadian Jewry. We're the 8th largest Jewish community in North America. We have a thriving, engaged Jewish community. By any marker, we are engaged, we are committed, we are involved. Although I say we're 8th largest, our UJA campaign ranks 4th and approaching 3rd in North America. Our synagogue membership, which even surprises me by last statistic, is something over 75%, although far few of those people actually attend services. Our intermarriage rate is about 15%. It's higher, obviously, in the non-Orthodox community, where it's between 20 to 25%. We have over 30% of the eligible cohort enrolled in day schools. We have 50% receiving some form of formal education. Federation is a significant funder of Jewish identity programming. We fund over $3 million a year in identity programming, exclusive of our funding to day schools, which is over $10 million a year. Our our communal formal Jewish education budget, that's our day school budget, is in excess of $100 million a year. So by any measure, you would think this is a community that has succeeded and that understands the issue. Despite our successes, Federation recognized that affiliation is a key strategic priority, not only for the future of Federation and UJA itself, but for the Federation, for the future of our Jewish community. We understood that Israel is an essential affirming component of Jewish identity, and is therefore strategically critical to increasing Jewish affiliation in the Greater Toronto Area. At the same time, we recognize that even in our community, there is a declining support for and identification with Israel, particularly among our youth. We had to acknowledge that our educational system has not allowed for mature, complex, and nuanced discussion of the realities of Israel. The lack of focus on Israel education in our schools has led to concerns that our students are often disillusioned by what they view as a simplistic approach to their Israel education and are not adequately prepared for the challenges they face on university campuses. Our students are neither motivated nor equipped to defend Israel effectively. So before they can advocate, they need something far more basic. They have said to us, if you are not prepared to engage us in the discussion of Israel issues in the safe environment of our schools and our synagogues, how can you expect us to be prepared to advocate on behalf of Israel in the more hostile environment we face on university campuses? We have to recognize that reality, and before we can impose upon them the expectation of engaging in advocacy on the front lines, they have to be prepared. And we have to prepare them through every avenue, every portal that we are able to do. This kind of recognition led to the creation of an Israel Engagement Committee within our Federation. The mandate of that committee is to build an Israel-engaged community through the provision of experiential education, professional development, and institutional change strategies. It is intended to equip institutional leaders and educators to create a variety of innovative access points to allow for and encourage a diverse, real, and sophisticated conversation and understanding of Israel and its many roles in Jewish life. It is doing this through merging education with identity building, developing multiple portals to engage Jews, and widening the conversation around Israel to one based on the Macom model of hugging and wrestling. Its goal is to empower all Jewish institutions across the community to become, quote, Israel engaged, not only in the areas of formal and informal Jewish education, but in religion, in travel and culture, and so to integrate Israel into the very vision and mission and overall programming of each participating institution. Its success will be measured by the engagement of individuals, institutions, and the overall community, leading to a deeper and broader engagement with Israel and Jewish affiliation in Toronto. So what's our experience? We started with Macom Young Emissaries program in 2007 with 2 emissaries and 3 participating institutions. In 2011, we have 14 emissaries and 23 participating institutions, including day schools, supplementary schools, synagogues, camps, and youth groups. We have reached a wide denominational and geographical spectrum. Each pair of emissaries reaches somewhere between 1,200 and 1,750 people per week through their experiential engagement. They have built personal relationships. They have built personal relationships not only with their host families, and we have 30 host families each year because they rotate. So those families are integrally involved and adopt these young emissaries. There have been personal relationships developed not only with the Israel Engagement Committee and Representative Federation, but all of those lay and professional leaders within the participating institutions with whom they engage. Not only that, the lay and professional leaders within the participating institutions have created an ongoing new range and depth of participation and engagement. The program has created an engaged and professional development opportunity for institutional leaders. They have developed their own professional community of learning and practice centered around Israel education, which includes an annual trip to Israel to choose the emissaries who participate in the program and allows them to engage in personal and professional growth and study. This program has enhanced relationships among the participating institutions along denominational lines and across denominational lines because institutions share emissaries and they necessarily have to collaborate. So what we've seen is a level of cooperation that is surprising even within denominations that we have not heretofore experienced. In addition, we have seen enhanced relationships between those institutions, synagogues, schools, camps, youth groups, and federation, because the engagement goes beyond the old model of funding and strict capacity building to create a medium through Israel engagement to engage a much broader agenda and involvement on a multi-institutional basis. The program has encouraged changes in pedagogy and curricular content to meet the challenges that we all face in Israel engagement. This program has reached more individuals than any other Federation-funded identity program. We are looking to, with the participation of Macom and the Jewish Agency, we are looking to expand it and roll it out and morph it into transforming institutions, which we're now involved as the second part of the program, currently working with 2 schools and 2 synagogues, to embed the program in every aspect of those institutions. It is our hope over the next period of 5 to 7 years to expand that process across all of the wide potential institutions in Toronto. And it has been a terrific experience. The students love the Shinshinim, the teachers love the Shinshinim, they participate in communal events, they are real emissaries, and they provide an added benefit because they experience life in Canada, they experience life in an engaged Jewish diaspora community. They become then emissaries for diaspora Jewry in Israel in their leadership roles in future years. And it's a huge benefit that we also need to recognize as having benefit for us as they become spokespeople on our behalf within the Israeli framework. What Macom does is enable these institutions and encourage institutions to work in collaboration with other organizations, other think tanks and educational organizations that are also developing resources and inspiring conversation around Israel engagement. And not surprisingly, one of those organizations is the Shalom Hartman Institute, which is providing, as you've seen a small snippet of, the intellectual framework to allow for a very thoughtful, nuanced conversation about Israel among our leadership. Hartman Institute has had a long history of a quiet presence in Toronto through private and synagogue-based adult education study groups, through the participation of many of our rabbis in its rabbinic leadership conferences, and of our communal leaders in its lay leadership retreats. Last year, we began a partnership of the Federation and the Hartman Institute to deliver programming targeted to our communal leadership, while it simultaneously developed and initiated the I Engage DVD series that you saw. We started a program for Federation leadership, which included our board members, members of our Israel Engagement Committee, members of our Israel and Overseas Committee, other communal leadership, which walked us through the I Engage curriculum. This was, I have to say, as a participant in the program, an aha moment for many seasoned leaders in our community to say, we can now approach the conversation differently. We also used the program for other lay leaders, including, among other people, our leadership development participants who represent, among other people, incoming agency, school and synagogue lay leaders. So the message is being transmitted on a variety of levels at the same time. Also going out to women's philanthropy, and at the same time an educators program which overlaps and supports the Macom initiatives. Same series provided for heads of school, Jewish educators, lead teachers, representatives in both the day and supplementary school system, so they can take this curriculum and then adapt it. One of the key benefits of this program and real successes for our community is the adaptation of this curriculum for use in our grade 12 community high school Israel education program, which for the first time will provide them the real opportunity to engage in this kind of educational discussion as a precursor to what they will face in the coming years. It's an enormous step forward. We could not have achieved it without the Hartman program, without the educators having been engaged in conversation, and without the support of the Israel Engagement Initiative that provided the impetus for this kind of initiative. At the same time, one last minute, the I Engage program, the DVD series, was piloted in one synagogue last year. It's been rolled out in a number. It's a hugely successful adult education program because it allows the conversation to take place at a highly intellectual level. Within each synagogue that participates, with trained facilitators, excellent, really excellent materials, and it just simply expands the conversation to a whole other level. So we are very grateful to have the opportunity to partner with these organizations. We're at early stages. We see huge opportunities going forward. We see our community perhaps as a model that other communities can emulate. We've got terrific partners. We're always looking for new opportunities to enhance the level of conversation and to provide a model for thoughtful civil discourse that embraces different points of view, different perspectives, but creates a forum for serious conversation. So with that, thank you to you.
I know the hour's late, so I'm going to make, and I apologize for that, 2 quick comments, and then we'll see if we're going to break at 25. That's 3 minutes. One, when I gave a speech at one point calling for the delinking of Israel advocacy, which we still need in Israel education, a colleague who reviewed the text said, do you understand? If you get into this seriously, I was calling for the creation of courses, particularly for professionals, called Wrestling with Israel. Some people may drop out. I said, you better believe that the vast majority of people can work through these issues and develop their own views and work through whatever the grays may be and stand with us wherever they end up. Wherever they stand, we stand with Israel. You got to believe that, and I do. I believe that that for all the reasons, people may end up on the right, the left, up or down, but you can work through all the complexity, but avoiding it leads people to ultimately, for some, to turn away and distance. Second of all, I want to just say I've known of Hartman, and the Hartman series is fabulous. Of course, I've known of Macom, but to hear the Toronto experience where you've put this together is really, really inspiring. There's a lot of focus, understandably, in our community on the issue of delegitimization. Those forces here, in my view, that deny the moral right of the Jewish people to the Jewish state. We need to stay on that. We need to put resources on that. This session is about recognizing we also need to put serious focus and resources on helping young and old legitimate Israel, not because they're repeating a line, but because they've worked through, struggled through, and they can stand on solid ground and deal. If we are able to create larger segments in our own community who can stand, who really have the intellectual, conceptual equipment, it will have extraordinary impact beyond. So I want to, and therefore each of us, whether we sit on the board of a Hillel, a synagogue, a board of Jewish education, a central agency, or a federation, I think the purpose of this was to give you, to help you, all of us, understand the conceptual imperative. We need to stand with advocacy, whether it's marches, whether it's dealing delegitimization, whether it's training people to be advocates on campuses to respond. But we also, within our educational institutions, synagogues, centers, hillels, camps, need to develop programs so can people develop their own views, struggle through the issues. That will strengthen us as a community. That will strengthen engagement wherever people end up, right or left. That's the purpose of this, and I hope you will take that back. And you've got great resources and partners here. In Shalom Hartman, in Makom at the Jewish Agency, and now with a living example of what's happening in Toronto, Liz, Ted Sokolsky, I don't know who else, but these are extraordinary examples. I thank you all for being with us. We've got a lot of work to do.